Yes. Okay, so welcome everybody to our last full class of the term. It's a little bit of a denouement of a class, but anyway, we're going to do the best we can. Hey, Sally, come on in. So we are going to start with the inevitable questions. Anybody have questions? Then we are going to talk about accordion fiddling in the Eastern Arctic. We're going to talk about Métis fiddling in Manitoba. And we have a special guest coming in to do some Métis fiddling with us. We are going to be playing instruments, so I hope you have instruments. If not, there's a piano, and I brought a whole bunch of extra tin whistles. And we're going to be dancing, so get your dancing shoes on. Yes, yes. So that will take us to the end. There will be an in-person tutorial on Thursday with me for those who want to come. On Tuesday, we're going to spend the first half of the tutorial preparing for the listening test, and we're going to spend the last half of the tutorial working on or preparing the take-home exam. We're talking about the take-home exam. So if you are just doing the listening test and not the take-home, you should come from 9:30 to 10:15. If you are just doing the take-home and not doing the listening, you should come from 10:15 to 11. And if you're doing both, you can come for both. If you're doing neither, I don't need to see you at all unless you just want to come and be helpful to your classmates. Hey, Anthony.
That's what I heard.
Good, good. Yes.
What day is that?
That is Thursday. Thursday's tutorials. So I will post Zoom links for Anna, Ida, and Stephen. Omar is not available. So if you're in Omar's tutorial, you can go to any of those Zoom meetings, or you can come in person and we'll be in the orchestra room upstairs, okay? So that's Thursday. The take-home exam I was supposed to be giving you, I was supposed to give you to take home today. I didn't get it done. I apologize. I need you to be as flexible with me as we're trying to be with you. So I will try to get that to you by tomorrow. Okay? And then it will be due 1 week from when you get it. So even though I was to give it to you today, it was due on Tuesday. If I give it to you Wednesday, it'll be due the following Wednesday. And it shouldn't go past Wednesday. I think that's all my announcements for now. Do you have any questions? I need to start with the questions. Hello, hello.
If I have enough path already, I forget everything. I don't know whether I have enough.
Yeah, you're probably not. Oh, it's okay. Sorry, you're probably not going to know all your marks by then. I know you're not going to know all your marks for them. So yeah.
You have to do it.
No, you don't. You don't. Well, if you think you can do better on it than you've been doing on other things, then you think you've done on other things. We're going to get as many marks back to you as we can this week, so that you will be able to make a decision. Yes, Derek.
I submitted the scholarly assignment part 3, but I may want to edit something. Am I able to go do that and change it, or
you can send in a second one, but let your TA know not to look at the first one.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you can take one back.
The assignment is sent to you directly, right?
No, you submit it through eClass. There's a place there for you to submit it on eClass.
Oh, really?
Yes. Don't worry about the whole days late. It's confused. You're not late. No, 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 no. If you get us stuff by next Tuesday, none of it's late. Just do your best work, and we just need time to mark.
So you don't need these.
No, no. Any questions? Okay, Mel, yes, what's your question?
Could you review, not the depth, the pick up the listening exam on Thursday? And there's the listening, and then there's the take home, both on Thursday.
Okay, so let me go over the Thursday plan one more time. On Thursday is tutorial. It is not the test. It is not the exam. On Thursday is tutorial. From 9:30 to 10:15 on Thursday, I and your TAs, depending on whether you're going to be in person or online, will be doing a practice listening test with one example like the ones that I'm going to put on the test. It's just for practice. Then from 10:15 till 11, we're going to go through together. I'm not going to tell you the take-home exam. I'm not going to tell you the answers, nor are your TAs, but we're going to help you figure out strategies for how to answer the questions and make sure the questions are clear. Okay, so there's no listening test or take-home test on Thursday. It's all just preparation and practice. Does that help, Mel?
Yes, timing, like, never mind, I'm not quite sure what my question is, so I'll come
Okay,
back.
well, you can always ask it later. There's lots of time for questions later, or put it in the chat and I'll try to keep checking the chat. Okay, so yes, one more question. Yep. I will try to get it to you tomorrow. Yeah, I'll send out an announcement. Yeah, on your class, yeah.
So, when will the last forum?
The last forum I'm putting up today, and it will be, you can do it whenever.
So today's the one that you put on 10, whatever will be the last?
Yes, yes, yes. It'll be 11B, I think, but it doesn't really matter. It's the last one. Yes.
And we have for next Tuesday.
Oh, you have longer than that, but try to get it in by Tuesday. Yeah. We're just all trying to fit things into little bits of time, right? So I realize that you're doing that as well. Megan, any questions?
No.
You're all good? Okay, let's start because I have lots of exciting things to talk about today. We are going to start with, let me back up here a minute. Okay, so we're going to talk about indigenous fiddling and accordion playing today. And there are many different indigenous communities in what we now call Canada, North America really, that have adopted the fiddle and accordion or the accordion as their own. These are considered to be indigenous musical traditions to the communities. So, and they vary widely from Newfoundland to BC, from the very, very top of the Arctic down to, well, to the tip of South America, really. The fiddle and to a lesser extent, the accordion have traveled all these places, have been picked up by different people. And the musical traditions vary very widely, but in general, they have become a blend of indigenous musical ideas and concepts with European and primarily Scottish, in North America at least, primarily Scottish and Irish, no, sorry, Scottish and French with a little bit of Irish. So this is the problem, haha. I knew there was a reason I had to print my notes off. The photocopier is not working, so I came in to print my notes and, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to then have this right on me. Sorry, guys. I thought I had this all worked out. Okay. Can you see me? Let me see if you can see me. Perfect. Okay. So the early history of fiddling in Canada mirrors the patterns of European immigration and settlement patterns, starting with French and Scottish immigration in the 16th century. And the earliest written record of violins in Canada is found in a Catholic treatise from 1645, and it's a description of a wedding in Quebec. At the same time, but relatively independent whaling vessels from Scotland, the Orkney Islands, Shetland Islands, were coming over to the Arctic areas of Canada and establishing whaling stations. So they were coming over to get the whale oil, and they were at first just coming over seasonally and had kind of intermittent contact with Inuit people. But after a bunch of shipping disasters, they decided to create permanent settlements in the north. And on this map here, and if you're at home, you can turn to the map where it shows the Hudson's Bay trading posts. And you can see all the ones in the north where they would be trading and these were whaling stations. You can see along the St. Lawrence, coming in through the St. Lawrence, these are fur traders' routes moving up into along the St. Lawrence and up into Manitoba, the prairies, and further west and northwest. So we have at first competing fur trading routes between the Northwest Company and the Hudson's Bay Company, and then at one point they all consolidate. So we know that at the same time that Indigenous populations along the fur trade route and in the north were being exposed to the European violin and the music that they were playing, they also were creating their own instruments that resemble fiddles. And I talked to you, I think, on the very first class about the Tauti root, an indigenous Eskimo, what they called then Eskimo fiddle, but the word in Inuktitut is Tauti root. And there's various examples of those still surviving, but it's not played at all or made in any communities anymore. It's been surpassed once they got their hands, once European violins became quite easy and enough of them around that they could be traded and gifted quite easily, then the Tauti root kind of fell out of favor. So the repertoire of the fur traders and the whalers at that time was dance music, Scottish and French dance music, jigs, reels, polkas, hornpipes, tunes that they played at home for social dancing primarily. And this was music of the people. This was the popular music of the day. What we now call folk music, of course, in Europe at that time was the popular music of the day. And so that was the music they came with. You've seen, I'm sure, the great big canoes that the fur traders used, the cargo canoes, like could fit like 20 people in them. Each of those had a fiddler. And the whaling vessels, one of the first people that was hired for a whaling vessel was a fiddler. And the fiddlers were very important because they made the hard work of whatever they were doing pass more quickly. But they also were there to give exercise to folks, especially on the whaling ships when they weren't like paddling all day. I don't think you need too much exercise after that. But if you're sitting on a whaling ship, and I don't know what you do on a whaling ship, but clearly they needed some exercise. So they would dance, they would step dance, they would do social dancing on the ship. And that's how the music then, as they were inviting Indigenous people into their camps, mostly for help, they needed help, and they would go into Indigenous communities, the music was shared, and so now there are many, many different styles of Indigenous music that exist. So we're gonna focus first, because I could talk about, you know, Cree fiddling from from James Bay, or Mi'kmaq fiddling from Cape Breton Island, or Métis fiddling from Ontario versus Manitoba versus Yukon. Because there's so many different styles, I'm focusing on just two, and just realize that these are not representative of all Métis fiddling or all Indigenous accordion playing. These are just kind of two case studies that I want to focus on. So the first area I want to show you, whoops, is the Cumberland Sound. This is important. So you see here a map of Nunavut, and in the bottom corner, for those of you who don't know where Nunavut is, because I realize not all of you were raised with Canadian geography top of mind. Nunavut is our newest territory in what we now call Canada. Here's a bigger map, and this island, this great big island here, is called Baffin Island. And Cumberland Sound is this area right here. Can you see my pointer? Yes, you can. Okay. So this is Cumberland Sound. And this was known as a very fertile ground for whales. And so there was a lot of whaling going on there from Norway, Orkney, Shetland, Scotland. And they actually created a whaling station right here on the north coast of this little, what do you call that? Jutting out part. There was an island there called Black Lead Island, and they formed a whaling station there that was a permanent for several years whaling station. So Inuit came and lived at the whaling station. They would do jobs and work for the sailors, help with the whale hunt, and there was a lot of interaction, intermarriage between the sailors and the Inuit people. So I also have, there we go. So this is a picture of Black Lead Island. And the name in Inuktitut is Umanarjuak, which the name since Nunavut became it's a territory in the 1991, I think. They've renamed all the communities in Inuktitut. And many communities still use the old names, but in any case, so that's what the island looked like. Doesn't look like a place that you can really survive, does it? But they had goods coming in from Europe on the whaling ships, and they had very fertile whaling grounds. And then the Inuit could also help by doing the other kinds of hunting that they would do to supplement meat with seal meat and other water kinds of animals, berries, and that sort of thing. So yeah, they had many dances. Every Friday night on this island, they had a dance where somebody was, one or more people were playing fiddle, usually unaccompanied. They didn't have pianos. Sometimes they had a harmonium, which is a kind of small organ-like instrument. There were sometimes accordions, sometimes concertinas, which is the bellows instrument that's shaped like a hexagon, I guess. Yeah, thank you. So it's smaller than an accordion. And every Friday night, the entire population of this small island would get together and have a dance. And they do jigs and reels and hornpipes, probably waltzes at that point. And many Inuit, particularly women, were picking up the accordion, and particularly men were picking up the fiddle. And we don't know yet why it is that this gender split in terms of instrumentation was happening, because the sailors were all men. So the role models that they were seeing were all men. So by mid 19th century, so say 1850, there are accounts from European explorers who were talking about how virtuosic the Inuit were on these instruments and how well they danced and how they could play the instruments for hours and hours. So they had a common repertoire that was learned, that they learned from listening. There weren't lessons per se. And also the Hudson's Bay stores, you saw the trading posts in that previous slide, they were selling fiddles, concertinas, accordions, instruments. So, and they were quite popular. You know, in some cases more popular than food. So this is just a little introduction to this, this accordion tradition here. You can't see, whoa. Oh, sorry, whoa, wait, okay, hold on. Let me move this over here. Okay, so I want you to think about, I'm gonna give you a signal. And at that point, I want you to think of this as an ethnography, okay? How do you do an ethnography?
Right.
Right, what? Everything you see. Okay, so when I give you the signal, write everything you see, and let's see how many details you can come up with. Okay, it's just 5 minutes, and the ethnography part's about 2 minutes. If you're at home, you might want to watch this on your own.
Right.
No, not yet.
Oh.
I'll give you the signal. This is Pangnirtung, which is on the north shore of that island. Okay, now. Okay, so what did you see in your ethnography? Just somebody start and then we'll,
Dancing.
dancing, what kind of dancing? Okay, so circle dancing, what reminded you of a polka dance? How did it?
The way that they're kind of like, I guess like tapping their feet.
So the footwork,
Jumping around a little bit.
so the footwork reminded you of polka? Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm just trying to make sure I know the details. Yep. What else? Yes,
The dancing was
well coordinated in what way?
Um,
See, if you said that on a test, I'd say, what do you mean well coordinated? What tells you it's well coordinated?
it doesn't seem like they were dancing, for the sake of dancing, rather, it was choreographed to some extent.
Okay, so it was choreographed. Can you talk more about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, after they were dancing the circle and stuff, they switched to another part of the choreography where, yeah, it was like partners dancing anyway.
Yep, yep, yeah. So they had partner moves, they had circle moves. Nobody was dragging anybody along because they didn't know where they were going. So they were they were choreographed and they knew what they were doing. I'm not sure it wasn't dancing for the sake of dancing. I suspect there was part of that going on, but you know, they were clearly showing it for the camera. So I take your point well there. What else? Yes, Sagi.
So like getting paired and dance like by two, but I don't remember, it was like mostly female and men. And they're happy.
They were happy. How do you know they were happy? But how do you know they were enjoying it? What did you see? They were smiling, yeah. So, yeah, I know it's that basic, right? Now, and I could push it ridiculously far and say, well, how do you know smiling means they're enjoying? But I will not go that far. I will not go that far. Yes, I kind of think that's maybe universal. I don't know. I'm not into universalisms, but yes, okay, good. Yes, they were smiling. Their eyes were bright. They were, you know, their feet were picked up. They had lots of energy going on. Samba dancing. Okay, anybody?
Some kids dancing, some kids.
There were some little kids. There were some little kids trying out some of the moves, right?
Yeah.
And that's partly how this is being transmitted is, you know, you're dragged along to these dances at a young age. You probably end up sleeping on a chair or under a chair at some point when you get tired, and you're just watching and listening and getting up when you want to get up. Now there are also teachers who are teaching, but for years and years and years, this was just transmitted informally like that. Yeah, Erica. Yes, sorry. No, she's not.
Yeah, I would say, like, even though it was choreographed, it was pretty casual. There was no, real, like, it's not dress code, like, coordination with the way that they dress. You saw, like, shots of people, like, standing around watching, just talking to each other. So it seems like, although it's choreographed, it's a very casual, like, light scene.
Yeah, excellent. Sorry, I felt something come in. Yes, they're not all doing everything at exactly the same time, right? So you can see the casualness. Sometimes when other people are doing stuff, somebody's standing, somebody might be doing this footwork, somebody might be doing some other kind of footwork. Their footwork's not all the same, right? They're doing whatever they feel comfortable doing. Derek.
Yeah, it almost seemed like it was informal, but it was tradition passed down because everybody, a lot of the people there seemed like a unity you know, but they seem indigenous.
Okay, yeah,
And
Yeah.
the venue, almost like a community center.
Yeah,
so to speak.
good. Yeah, the venue's like a room in the community center, or maybe it's the school gym, the local school gym, yeah.
They were dancing to music.
Yes, they were, yeah. You're correct, yes, solo accordion music, which is very common, yep, very good, yep. So you are getting into the sound a little bit, or who's making the sound, yeah, good. Don't, when ethnography, don't just focus on what you see, but what do you hear, what do you feel, what do you blah, 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 blah. Anything else? Jaunty? Yeah, lively and jaunty, yeah. Fast, good. Right, good, good, quick movements, fast tempo. There's a little bit of syncopation going on, right? Which helps to add to the energy of a piece. The fact that they were dancing, what else could you say about the music?
You remind me of Irish.
Yeah, well, because it's actually a Scottish tune, and Scotland and Ireland are very much related, yeah.
Well, it was like, there was a lot of repeating parts, like, it was repetitive, so that's what, I guess that's what makes it, easy to dance to.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there was some varying parts too, so like, you know, I guess signals for the dancers for when to do the partner dance, and then the signal for when to do the circle dance.
Yeah, so there's A part, which is higher, and a B part, which is lower.
Yeah.
And when you move from the A part to the B part, you know to start the next
Yeah.
sort of movement. Exactly, good. So we've got not a lot of melodic variation going on, which I can't say, when you're dancing, you don't need a lot of, it doesn't mean there can't be, but it means you don't need a lot of melodic variation. But what are the most important things for a dance tune? Rhythm, what about the rhythm?
It was steady 4/4, and each beat was also marked by foot taps.
Yes, good, good, good. Yes, so if you see dancing, that's the first thing you should check for. Is what are the characteristics of the music that are making this a dance piece? And steady beat, having the accent on the downbeat. I would count this in 2, but it's very easy to count in 4, same thing. And some syncopation on the upbeats to give it the lift, to make it, you know, energetic. Repeated phrases, because we're not listening. We don't need a lot of variation in the listening. It's there just to move us. Good, 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 good. Excellent. You guys are doing really well. Anybody at home want to contribute to the ethnography? Okay, I'm going to go back to find my notes here. I did really, oh, who are the people? You said they looked indigenous. Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes, but yes. But what else could you say about the people? Yeah, some of them, sometimes they were holding hands, sometimes they weren't. Yep, yep.
With the children, it seemed like it was a lot of like families, maybe.
Well, probably, knowing what we know about
Sure.
indigenous communities, yes,
Yeah.
probably family, yeah, cousins or friends, yeah. They knew each other anyway, right? Yeah. But just basic things, right? Men and women, both dancing. Sometimes women dancing with women, sometimes men dancing with men, sometimes men dancing with women. So gender doesn't seem to matter in terms of being paired up, who you're dancing beside, who you're holding hands with. What about ages? Did you notice the ages of the folks? Middle age?
Like a wide.
A wide range, yeah. So you have the little kids. Now, they weren't actually doing the choreography, but even amongst the choreography, there's some people that look like they could be teenagers, upper teens, 16, 17, 18. And then there's some older folks, right? So something that it can be done by, it encompasses a wide range of people. And again, that's part of the transmission process. Okay, and the fact that a lot of them were doing different footwork, that's going to be important later on. So we'll come to that. So I'm going to bring this back here and go. So, so the speed through which different musical styles pass through this community on, and I'm going to say Blacklead Island, but I can't remember. I'll come back to that. I got to practice that. The speed with which the music went through these communities is quite astounding. So in the 1800s, mid to late 1800s, what we call traditional dancing and songs of this community were still very much being performed and practiced, being passed down from generation. And there's a lot of carvings that from that period of time that exist that show that the drum dancing, you can see the great big drum, was widespread amongst Inuit in the north. But by the mid 1800s, when the sailing ships or the whaling ships came in, then we got the introduction of the European dance music, let's say, the Celtic-based music. And it came in so that, let's see what this says here. When English missionary Edmund James Peck arrived at the mission station on Blacklead Island in 1894, traditional religious and social traditions were still practiced by the Inuit. But by the beginning of the 20th century, so 10 years later, European music and dancing were already more predominant than traditional Inuit music in the Cumberland Sound area. So the transition happened very quickly. And why did that happen? In part because it's a very, the Inuit culture prizes music very highly. And so they are very quick to adopt this new music that's coming in. Who wouldn't, right? If you've been playing some kind of music and then you hear something new, you want to get into that. So quick to adopt that, but also because of the missionaries who did not like their traditional Inuit music because they thought it connected too much to some sort of spirit religion, not Christianity. And so the missionaries very adamantly discouraged traditional drum songs and drum dancing and encouraged their participation in the European dance music. So that is partly why that happened so quickly. And the accordion music and dancing continues to this day, very popular in many communities to this day, although it went through a dip in the 70s, 80s. It's coming back strongly again in the 1990s. But by the 1970s, also in these communities around Cumberland Sound, there is evidence that these weekly Celtic music dances, where they would do jigs and reels and dance like you just saw, were being replaced by country and rock music. And so the fiddle music and the accordion music became then special. It was played at Christmas. It was played on birthdays. It was played for special occasions. And the weekly dances became country music or rock music dances. And though that music still exists and is still very popular in many communities, especially country music, very, very popular. And then in the 1990s, there was a resurgence of interest in traditional Inuit culture, and partly because of the founding of Nunavut, or the creation of Nunavut. And so drum dancing is now making a comeback again. And so I'm going to play just a small example of both of these.
No offense, but if you
Sorry.
still think stocks, real estate, or crypto are the best passive income investments in today's
So tell me what you hear in this country music from the 1970s.
It's around me.
Okay, that's all we have time for, but what did you hear? Couple things. Yes. Sorry? Yeah, but what makes it a country type feel? What gives it a country type feel?
Heard like the guitar plays.
Yeah, so like, no, sorry, steel guitar or slide guitar, yeah, good. Which really, you connect with steel guitar with country for sure. What else? Yes.
Like the progression itself is just like chords and
Yeah.
vibes and those kinds of things that are very typical. That is very typical in country music of that era. But there's also the vocalist is using like a typical country melody, but they're not singing in English. They're singing in
Inuktitut.
oh. Okay.
Yeah. So lyrics that could be understood by the audience. And at that time in the 60s and 70s, Inuktitut was still quite prevalent, although English was becoming more prevalent because of residential schools. But so singing in Inuktitut, but really, if it wasn't for the lyrics, that could be any country band anywhere, right? Guitar, bass, drums, steel guitar, vocals. Okay, good. And I just want to give a little bit of an example of the drum dancing. And I will move this over so that, oops. Wait a minute, no. So that is what we would have heard if we had visited in the 1800s to these communities. And why do you think some of them are spiritual, but some of them are not? Some of them are just about everyday things, going hunting, building shelter, that sort of thing. Why do you think, though, that the missionaries hearing these wanted to cut them out? This gives somebody else a chance to exercise their arm. Anybody at home? My question is, why upon hearing that might the missionaries have thought that they needed to quash that?
Well, I mean, I guess the missionaries' purpose is to try and inject their own culture and have that become the kind of predominant, I guess, culture of the area. So they hear this, and the performance of this would be a huge representation of Indian culture, I guess. And if they allow them to keep doing that, it's going to be much harder for them to impose their own cultural values and practices.
Yeah, good. And the sound of this music, they don't know what the lyrics mean, right? They don't speak Inuktitut. The sound of the music is reminiscent of many other kinds of spiritual music, right? The steady drum beat, the kind of chanting sort of singing. So whether they're singing about, you know, this rabbit who got away and they can't catch the rabbit and how are they going to get the rabbit, or they're singing to a higher power, some sort of sacred thing, they don't know. All they hear is this music that to them sounds like chanting and a steady beat. And this must be what puts them in touch with a higher power. We got to get rid of it. So it's the sound of the music as much as anything, and the fact that, you know, drums are considered sacred objects and living objects, so that they needed to get rid of that. Good, good, good. So the next slide, I just want to show you. Oops. Yeah. The words that are being used to describe the various musics are very telling. So in the 1820s, the word mumik was just the general word for dancing, and that was applied to that's what they used to talk about their drum dancing, drum songs and drum dancing. By the 1970s, so what? That's over 100 years later. It's a long time, mind you. But the word mumik tut means plural on the end. It pluralizes a word. So pluralized music. They're using that to talk about the European-based accordion music now. And they have a different word that is used to talk about the songs of their ancestors, the drum dance songs. So they have a new terminology. And then they have the quadlunak, which is referring to the rock and country music that literally means white stranger from the south's music, literally means, but basically white man's music. So very interesting that the way they're thinking about the music and how it is in relationship to their own identity changes over time, and that comes through in the actual language that they're using. I find that fascinating. I think it's very telling. Where are my notes here? So and just a picture, just because I like cute little kids. So there is increasing interest in accordion and fiddle music now. There are all sorts of teachers in schools opening up all across Nunavut, teaching accordion and fiddle. And what kind of accordion is it? I didn't make this point when we were talking previously. Button accordion, different than the keyboard accordion that comes in different traditions. So this is more related to French and Scottish fiddling, or old Scottish fiddling, not new Scottish. Sorry, accordion playing. Okay, I have two examples for you now. The first was recorded in 1973 by a woman who was in her 70s. She was born at this whaling station on Blacklead Island. And she remembered the performance of the traditional drum songs when she was growing up. But she says, even at that time in the 1920s, her own relatives would discourage her from participating. She was never outright told she couldn't perform them, but she was discouraged from performing that music because they were, I guess you could say, drinking the orangeade from the missionaries, but they were converting, and they wanted her to perform the music of the Europeans. And so she learned from some of the older players and would play for dances once a week on the island. And then after, when she moved into Pangnirtung. So I'm going to play this tune for you, and I want you to think about the structure. You don't need to think about anything else about the structure. And I'm going to give you a hint that there is an A part that is repeated, And then there is a B part that is repeated. And I'm gonna tell you where those parts are, and I want you to see if you can figure out what the rest of the structure is as you're listening. Okay, there's only A's and B's. Well, there's an A prime. Does everybody know what an A prime is? Okay, so similar to A, but not quite the same thing, right? Okay, so see if you can figure out the structure of this piece. Okay, repeat Okay. How do you do that exercise, what I just asked you to do? How do you find out a structure of a piece? Yeah, Erica?
I guess, well, I did it all in my head, but if you were to do it, you would sort of like write down parts. I may have missed a few, if I'm being honest. But you would hear it and be like, that's A, or that's B.
Okay,
I was sort of paying attention more to the time signature because it really caught my attention. It's like alternating 4 and 5.
okay, good. Sagi?
So if you find the end points, then where the number is. That is A or.
And I kind of told you where those were to start, right? So how many of you could listen to that whole piece and come up with a structure in your head? Can you tell me what it is? Pardon? Okay, well, try me. So let's just continue here. Okay.
Just repeating back and forth.
No. Who else? Yeah.
I'm not wrong, but AABB, AAB, AAB. And then I think I missed a little bit, but it ends with an A and then a B.
Okay. Closer, closer. I'm going to suggest to you that to do this and remember in your head, I don't know anybody who could do that. Anybody. I think you need a pen and a paper to write it down. So that's my hot tip for the rest of your 3 years here at university. If you're asked to do structural analysis, you need to write it down. You will need to write it down on the listening test too. So listen and write. If you need a paper and pen, ask somebody around you because I'm sure somebody can come up with one for you. Let's listen one more time and let's see if Alex, thank you. Yes, I knew that. I knew that. Alex is right. He's close. He's not quite perfect, but none of us are. That's okay. Okay, give it a shot. Yeah, Erica.
Okay, so I think Alex, he's close to it, but I'm just taking like a wild guess here.
Yeah,
At the end, is there 2 A's instead of 1?
no,
Like where there's the A, is the last A there?
oh, two?
Yeah, there would be 2, is that?
Yes,
correct?
that's
Okay.
closer. Yeah, okay, so give it one more shot, and I will buy coffee for whoever gets it right. Yes. And for as many of you as get it right. Okay, here you go. So, you folks at home, I guess too, although that's a little bit harder for you. Okay, here we go. Are we ready? And it can be a fancy coffee from Starbucks.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I will splurge.
Really time to study.
Okay.
Here we go, ready? So I'll give you the first A and B. I'll help you along. Okay, who is gonna fix this up? And if, pardon? Yeah, the last one that just fades away. I'll give it to you that it fades away on the B. Yeah, the B, and it kind of fades and then it would, yeah, but we won't count that. Okay, okay. And if you tell me you got what the person says who is right, I will give you all coffee, okay? So there's no, it's not just one person. Okay. Yeah, okay, yes,
A-A-B,
yeah,
A-A-B,
yeah.
A-A-B, B, A-A-B, A-A-B.
Yeah. Let me just check. I believe. Just a second. Oh, yeah, that would have been helpful, but. Okay, how many people had that?
I haven't.
Okay. I'll give you guys a chance to check yours.
At last, we have an A student being.
Yeah, we won't count the A that's fading. Yeah, you got it? Okay, put your hands up. Okay, if somebody has Derek, no, you didn't get your coffee? That's right, that's right. So can I have a piece of your paper?
Yeah, yes.
You guys all put your email address on here. I will transfer you money for a coffee. Oh, sorry. I needed people to participate. Okay, you guys again. No, okay. There you go. You, I owe you.
I thought we were like, I thought we had like, it's gonna three kids together.
Oh, well, that would be even more fun, except that I can't go right after class today.
What about next class?
How about Thursday?
There's not a.
All of you guys who are, yeah, there's not a next class, but all of you guys who are here today who I owe coffee, can we go on Thursday? After tutorial on Thursday at 11 o'clock?
I have a studio recording.
No,
How about 9 o'clock? We have coffee before class.
That'd be nice. I would think about it.
Yeah?
I would take it.
We'll figure out the time in a minute. Okay, now,
Hi, Sherry. Can you please say it again so I can write it in the chat?
pardon?
Can you please say it again so I can write it in the chat?
Yes, actually, I can put it in the chat here.
Okay.
So
And what do the people at home get?
I will transfer you. I hope there's not too many of you. I will transfer you the money for a coffee, and then we can share it sometime online. How's that?
Okay, guys, take it away.
Okay, so actually, can I erase that now? Okay, so this, crap. Okay, this isn't quite perfect yet. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you because it's very, very close. There's one thing about, okay. Hold on, Derek, you may get the, Baskin Robbins ice cream. How's that for the yes, there is an A prime. So where does the last days?
In one of them, it's an A prime. I can hear.
Anybody else know where the A prime goes? And why is it an A prime and not an A? This is, I would never ask you this on a test, but this is, if you listen to it enough times. So, okay, let's look at the phrases. Can you sing A for me? So, if we have beats of bars of either 2 or 3 beats per bar, what would the phrase structure for A be? So let's sing what is the phrase structure? So thinking about how many bars and how many beats per bar, how many beats are in A?
There's not.
Well, okay, yeah, let's listen to it one more time, and we might not get to the Métis stuff at all until Anne gets here, but that's okay, because I find these tunes very fascinating. Sorry. Sorry, I had a, I don't know how to stop it once I get it playing. How many beats are in the A part? Anybody at home? I take my coffee with caviar and champagne. Okay, you bring the caviar and champagne.
Deal.
I think it's alternating bars of 4 to 5.
Not quite. It's possible there's various ways to count this, right? Okay. this is one possible way. It's still not 4 and 5, but I'm going to suggest that it could be counted like this. So 4 bars. The first bar is 3, 4. Second bar is 2, 4. Third bar is, so listen and I'll count it out loud. And I know folks at home, let's see. How's that? Okay. Okay, I have got to figure out how to press pause on this. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, three, one, two. Does that make sense to you? Do you hear that?
Yes.
So if A is 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, you hear that? Okay, let's do it one more time. Okay, you do? Yeah, okay, let's do this one more time. But the first one is hard. It sounds like a pickup, but in fact, it's not a pickup. 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so now, if that is A, what is B? That's the B part. Not quite. Not quite. Okay, so let's keep it in 2/4, which is basically because it's a hornpipe, it isn't, we'd normally keep it counted in 2. That's why we have 2s up here. Otherwise, you're right. This could be 5 and 4, right? You're right there. So if we're going to count it in 2, yeah.
And maybe if we're counting in 3s and 2s, I would put this, it would be the same structure with the 3s at the end.
So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, this is the tricky part. What is A prime? What is A prime? And we have to wait. No, yeah, actually. So by the time we get to this section, one of these is an A prime. Can you tell me which one? No more prizes. Okay, because you have a 50-50 chance. So, okay. Yeah, specifically on this read, yeah, is an A prime. Okay, so 50, not both, but one. Okay, folks at home, is that clear? Okay, so one of this right there. Oh, actually, I already gave you the answer at home. So you just be quiet for a minute. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Wait. Second one, excellent. Okay. Yeah, we're working up to the steakhouse, right? Okay, now this is our last time through, and this is just for extra bonus marks. Where are the other A primes? So you know that there's one here and one here because Erica, you said, oh, Sagi told me that. Okay, yeah, I'll give you credit for that. And there's one here and there's two more. Do you know? You can guess before we start.
I would say the A is going into the B.
You are right. Yeah, you're right. Because the beginning, this extra beat here sounds the same as the first beat of B. And so it's always hard to tell, are they going into A again or are they going into B? Yeah, I don't know what my point was there, but anyway, yes, you are right. Educated guess, excellent. That is a perfect structural analysis of a piece. Now, we didn't practice these enough, so I can't put anything that difficult on the test, but good listening. So the next one I have, there's a few other things I wanted you to hear in this piece. What are if we're talking about, if we're counting in 2/4, or even if we're counting in 4, it doesn't really matter. What are the predominant rhythms in this, or beat values? Half notes? No, not half notes. Anybody at home can call that too. What are the predominant rhythms or beat values? Do I have to offer prizes to get answers? Holy moly. I'm not that rich. Yeah. Pardon? Yeah, exactly. I'll bring Rat's candies next time. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Is it 8s and 16s?
Yes, but more, can you be more specific? Yeah.
Maybe 8 half. 8 dotted, I'm sorry.
Yeah, dotted notes. So we have the da 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 da. One very prominent rhythm is right off the top. The da da, right? That has a special name in Scottish music called the Scotch snap. So when it's the short note and then the dotted note after it, da 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 da. And then there's another one that is characteristic of this kind of music, and that is the triplet. Da 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 da. So how they've taken this piece? This piece wouldn't have been played like that by the European whalers. Kudlu has taken this song, learned from her elders, who learned it at some point from the Scottish sailors. At that point, it would have been straight bars of 2/4. 4 bars of 2/4, 4 bars of 2/4, 4 bars of 2/4. What they've added are this playing with the phrase lengths and the repetitions of the piece to make it their own. They've maintained the Scotch snap, the rhythmic identity of the piece is still there. The triplets and the Scotch snap are from Scottish fiddle, a Scottish tune type called a strathspey, it doesn't matter. But it also gives it a nice swing for dancing. Right? It's a dancey piece. It makes you want to dance. I saw everybody tapping. Well, maybe you were tapping just to count, but it's a nice dancey piece. Okay, I have one more accordion piece to play from you. This is the same guy who played in the NFB film clip that we saw earlier, Simeone Kinanak. And he and I communicated a fair bit about a project that I was working on about Inuit accordion playing. He is a retired RCMP officer. He is a hunter out on the land. He's a prize-winning wildlife photographer. He is also probably the best known contemporary accordion player. He grew up in the town of Pangnirtung, and if we go back to our map, whoopsie, there we are. You see the Cumberland Sound is here. Blacklead Island is here where Kudlu was born. But after the whaling station closed, she moved to Pangnirtung, which is where Simeone grew up, also on the Cumberland Sound. So also lots of contact with whaling vessels. Let me just go on and find my notes here so I know what I'm saying. So he was born in 1948. That makes him approximately 50 years older than Kudlu. He is renowned for his stamina. He thinks nothing of playing 2 hours straight, like not stopping, 2 hours straight for a dance, and lots of blisters on his fingers. It was very uncommon for men or boys to play accordion, but he fell in love with the music by going to dances, by going to square dances, and he decided he wanted to learn to play whether or not it was appropriate for men. And his reasoning for this gender differentiation is that Inuit men are often out on the land hunting for weeks and months on end. And they can't take an accordion with them to play with them out on the land. It's too bulky. They have necessities of life. Not that music is not a necessity of life, but they have other things they need to take. So the women were staying home in the camps, and they were also working very hard, but they didn't have to travel around and transport this on sleds. And so they were the ones that were able to actually spend time learning to play the accordion. But as I said, he learned, and Kudlu actually made him a cassette tape way back in the 50s. Were cassette tapes even around then? Actually, you know what? I have to say, I don't know what kind of tape it was. He said she made him a tape that he learned repertoire from. So he learned directly from
It would
her.
have been reel to reel.
Reel to reel. Okay, thank you. Was that Mel? Okay, perfect. I should ask him that just to clarify. That might help with timing either. I'm going to play a set of tunes that Simeone often plays for dances. Now, this was actually recorded at the Inuit Accordion Festival in 1996. And he's got a full band with him. But normally when he's playing in a community, it would be without accompaniment. And he only knows the names of these tunes in Inuktitut, but they are parts of well-known British dance pieces. So the B part of the Iksakik is from one tune. The A part is from a different tune. And so you can see how, again, they've taken these various pieces that they picked up and learned by ear and passed on by ear and put them together as they remembered them and made them their own. So these are really their own pieces. So here we go. So actually, just for fun, just so you can practice, this one also has A's and B's and B primes. And I'll start you out with A, B. Yeah, okay. So here we go. Good face. That tells me exactly what I wanted to hear. Actually, he's changing to a different tune. So that generally is not appreciated by Inuit dancers. They like them to stick to the same tune for the whole piece. Simeone, given that he's one of the best, doesn't follow that convention. He likes to change pieces in the middle. It's kind of interesting, that practice amongst various fiddle and dance communities across Canada, because some, like our tradition in the Ottawa Valley, is very much that when you change pieces within a medley, you change key, and you want the greatest contrasting key that you can come up with. In Cape Breton, that would be totally forbidden, and you can only change tunes using the same tonic. So you could do A minor, A major, A mixolydian, whatever, but you have to stay with an A tonic. So various communities have grown up with these various likes and dislikes, I guess, and you know to follow in those rules. So what did we get for this? Anybody? Yes, Soggy.
A, B, B prime, A, B, B prime, A, B, B prime, A, and C. A prime.
No, you're right. You're right. Let me see. A, B, B. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, sorry. That you were right. No, I was wrong. I mean, you were right. Yeah. Okay. And then it switches to the other piece. What's the difference between B and B prime?
The ending is like, so for as classical period is like it ends with a half cadence.
Yeah.
And in the second one, it ends with an authentic, perfect authentic.
Perfect. Yeah. In fiddle talk, we would say ends on a 5, ends on a 1, right? We know 5 and 1. We don't know perfect and authentic and inauthentic and such. Okay, good. And what about the phrase lengths? What did you get for the A? Anybody? Should we hear one more time for the phrase lengths? We're not going to get to Métis, and Anne's going to be here shortly. So let's just quickly do the phrase lengths and then we will take a quick break. Whoops, wrong one. Here we go. Anybody? Yeah.
So, for the A part, it's 2 bars of 4/4, and for the B part, it's 2 bars of 3/4.
Not quite.
I mean, for A, it's 8 beats, and for B, it's 6.
Yeah. You're right. Right. Good. Okay. Awesome. So why don't you guys take 5 minutes and then don't run off too far, and then we're gonna run back. I'm just gonna put this in the chat so folks at home have it. And hello.
Wait,
Go to. Okay, thank you.
Tendency, you mean?
Yeah. So folks at home, you guys can take a 5-minute too, but if you have any questions, I will be back in a minute to answer them, okay?
So I saw her like, I don't know when they do that, but sometimes.
Oh, plastic.
I got. It's like, it was pretty, scary. She said it was hard.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting there looking at that. Oh. What's all? What's all?
Yes, yeah, so next.
And the written section.
This one is 6-12 and running out of time. Those are my favorite ones, but yeah, I like these are my favorite ones, but out of those.
Yeah. Oh.
Not yet, not yet.
My friend, she told me that.
What do you do? What do you do?
I didn't know that.
You don't have to.
There are more stuff, but they have.
You have to do, you have to do this one. Okay.
Yeah, 2023.
You
I know.
choose two of the following.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love them. This was my birthday. I didn't even know. This
You
year.
need to do a scholarly or. For you choose an article.
My,
Okay, you do need to do the listening. Yeah, you don't need to do regular.
They're the same.
Yeah.
oh, what?
Okay.
Well, nice. Yeah,
But actually,
even before it.
is that the point?
My favorite bait.
Yeah, well, she won.
Yeah.
Yesterday. She also did fiddle. Yeah.
You got to see,
On any.
yeah, you can hold it. Yeah, then you'll want to look at it. If I reach even for the real. And if we're the youngest.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
No, it's actually.
I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my instruments when it is, so it's gonna strike.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And is that mine or is that yours?
That's yours.
Okay.
So I'll, yeah, I'm gonna have some fun with it and then I'll.
Okay, okay. Okay.
No handy board.
No, it's not. Yeah. I haven't, I was going to speak to the 7 step and play it and dance it and I ran out of time because I was doing, for the music. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, I'm just gonna check if the online folks. Do you guys have any questions? Anybody at home? What time approximately is the playing and dancing? I'm at work on campus. David, I'm not sure we're gonna get that far. I'm not sure what we're gonna do at this point because we're running out of time. So, yeah. Okay, I am gonna put this. So, Anne. So do you want to take over or do you want? I told you not to prepare and then I had no idea what you wanted to do, but it's like. I don't really know what you want. No, be able to hear it. Structural analysis, so they just your like, yeah, I know.
Well, you prepare a lot, but you know, I'm so used to just telling this story,
I know.
story about this music, but that's, you know, I would do that. I mean, I'll make it. It's not.
Like, I had a really myself.
What's your favorite chicken? How do you?
And I was gonna get into, you know, do the basic steps and but you don't need to, like, whatever.
Sit down.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Just like,
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, me and Ian.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And it wasn't on the side, it's, you know, we're filling in.
Right. Towards the end.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, folks, we are gonna get started just because I know there's always lots to do. So it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Ann Letterman, who some of you have met already. You were at one of her performances for the musical ethnography. Ann is also the fiddle teacher here at York University, and she often comes in to guest teach in the Celtic ensemble because she is I was going to say master, but she is that's not a good word anymore. She is talented and knowledgeable about many different fiddle styles from across Canada, and she's now starting to play the Norwegian Hardanger fiddle as well, which is really, really interesting. And we've had her come in and do some stuff on that as well. But any of you who want to learn some fiddle tunes next year, she offers private lessons through the music department. Or any of you who like this music can join up for Celtic Ensemble. And if we get enough people, we get to run it. So that's very exciting. But going back to Ann now, she in the 1980s spent several summers and continually since then in Manitoba, working with some of the Indigenous and Métis fiddlers there. She is well known for her work in Métis fiddling and amongst many other styles. And so she also plays in many different groups, klezmer and probably other Eastern European musical styles. And she has a one-woman show that she does about her field work and probably others as well. So you can look up Ann Letterman on Google and she will come up in many, many different places. And she's here to talk with us in person today, face to face, and get us moving our feet a little bit. So, Ann, welcome.
I'm just going to start by playing a tune and see what you think of it. This is one of the Manitoba tunes from Indigenous tradition. It goes like this. Thank you. So maybe that sounds a little bit like what you've been listening to with Simeone, Keep Me Neck. There's certainly a connection in terms of music coming over from Europe, mostly from the British Isles, and being picked up by Indigenous players and changed. You know, a lot of things in that music, I think, relate to Indigenous tradition, as well as the Scottish traditions and French Canadian traditions that we're all feeding into it, some American traditions, et cetera, et cetera. But what do you think? Have you seen that kind of footwork before? Where you can't really hear it here, unfortunately, but where people are doing this all the way through. If you have a nice wood floor under you, that can sound like a herd of charging buffalo. It's often the only way that, it's often the only other sound with the fiddle that happened for a long period of time in huge parts of Canada. Fiddle players would sit and play for whole rooms of people dancing just with the sound of the fiddle and their feet to keep it all going. But yes, if anybody run into this before? Yeah.
Well, I've seen, like Irish music and the Irish fiddlers do that as well.
Yeah, they don't do it quite like that. That, when you see, I mean, you'll see a lot of Irish players and Scottish players sort of doing a 1 foot thing where they're going dum, bum, 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 bum. As soon as you see that extra, that other foot in there, you know, where I'm getting the dum, bum, dum, bum, dum, dum, with that other toe beat, then you know you're probably dealing with a tradition that has French Canadian roots. They do it all over Quebec. You can look up, you know, hundreds of great Quebecois fiddlers, and they'll just be pounding the floor like crazy like that. And all over indigenous country, because it was French Canadian fur traders who were partly responsible for bringing the fiddle into those, to that entire part of Canada. One of the things I really love about being involved in folk traditions in Canada is that you can see so much of the history of the country in the music, in the influences in each style of fiddling, in the way it's done. You know, once you kind of get into it, get into the history of it and look at why it's like that and what kinds of things are coming together to create a style, you really start to understand the entire immigrant history of the country. And I was really excited about this style because it's, of course, you know, involved so many indigenous people, which is kind of a curious thing. Like, how did indigenous people get involved in playing the fiddle, you might wonder. Anybody wonder? Yeah, does anybody have any thoughts about that? Maybe you've done some stuff in your classes already. Yes.
We were talking about missionaries.
Yeah. Yeah, especially into Inuit and Northern traditions. That was a thing. In a lot of the rest of the country, it wasn't so much missionaries as it was fur traders. Guys coming from Scotland, from the Orkney Islands, from Shetland Islands, from Quebec, entirely to, you know, to trap beaver and get rich, basically. But an awful lot of those guys who came over or came from Quebec had their fiddles with them. It was pretty easily transportable. You're canoeing for long periods of time, portaging, but this is not a big deal. This was the instrument that could make its way to every corner of the country. And it was pretty good for dancing too, so kind of solved a lot of problems at once. Yeah, anybody have any questions about this or where it comes from?
That piece you just played, wasn't it too fast?
Theoretically, that's a good question. I know you were trying to trace the structure of one of Simeone's kind of crooked tunes. You know, fiddle players have taken to calling those kinds of tunes crooked, meaning that most of the stuff that came from Scotland and Ireland, maybe you talked about this, is in nice 4-beat phrases. Duppity, 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 dup, duppity, 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 da, a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. But in the hands of French Canadians and Indigenous players, that 4-beat thing got completely thrown out the window in some ways. You'll find phrases that are 5 beats long, 6 beats long, 7 beats long, 3 beats long, all mixed up in a tune. If we had time, we could go through that tune and figure it out the way you did with the Simeone tune. But it's probably more fun to just play something else instead. Are there any fiddle players in the room? No, okay. I will resist talking about the alterations of the fiddle. Actually, I won't totally resist because I have retuned the fiddle slightly.
And there may be fiddle players on Zoom.
Pardon?
There may be fiddle players on Zoom.
Ah,
There's a whole bunch of people on Zoom.
that might have their fiddles retuned?
No,
Oh,
that are fiddle players.
oh, I see. Oh, you
Yeah.
have fiddle players. Ah, right. There's a whole Zoom audience. out
Yes,
there. Hi.
yes, yes.
So I have tuned one of my strings up, which gives me a much more ringing resonant sound because two of them are the same now. There are other tunings as well. There's about 5 or 6 different tunings I could use. These are not, these were popular a couple hundred years ago, even in Scotland, but not used a whole lot anymore. Most people these days can't be bothered to change their tunings, which is kind of too bad because it's such a beautiful thing. It puts you into a whole other musical world when you're getting that kind of ring all the time that you're playing. So that's one of the things that's going on. I thought I might play you, if you see the feet going up, you're technically playing a reel, which is often called a 2/4 tune, but it's kind of irrelevant with this music to call it 2/4. You know, 2/4, the whole concept of bars and certain meters like 2/4 or 4/4 is that the tunes are organized into those groups so that the first beat is stronger, 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2, or 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, right? That is really not true with this music because the foot pattern is a 1-beat pattern, right? It's going dum, ba, dum. Or I mean, without the second beat, it's just going long, short, short. And it's just continuous and it's all the same. So I tend to call this 1-beat music. And I write it out without bar lines because the phrases are so irregular that you're if you do try to put it in 2/4, you're constantly having to add a 3/4 bar or 1/4 bar or something to compensate for the fact that the phrases are odd lengths. So it doesn't make a lot of sense really to think of the 2/4, except to kind of file it away that this is a reel, right? That you're hearing 1 and 2 and the beat splits in half. 1 and 2. Yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious, you mentioned how, I think it was a Scottish tradition, it's very neat how you come up with one more phrase. And how does that transition happen into, when you get all these irregular phrases?
All these irregular phrases?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's 2 main other cultures involved that are doing it. First, the French. If you listen to old French folk song from France, the phrasing and the singing is also really irregular. There are pauses at the end of phrases that are longer and shorter again. So it started to happen in Quebec. I think that it was hugely augmented by indigenous tradition. Indigenous tradition, again, if you look at their old ceremonial music, especially the stuff from the cultures involved in this, which is basically Ojibwa and Cree, the singing also is full of phrases that are all different lengths. So to me, you know, you had this culture of straight 4-beat phrases coming and meeting cultures that didn't really particularly necessarily even like 4-beat phrases, right? They liked things that were a little more elastic, things that, you know, had extra beats and fewer beats, and you know, nobody was counting, right? No, I think what happened is people just heard these melodies and played them with the phrasing that they liked, that they were comfortable with from their own traditions. And, you know, so we ended up with, sometimes you can recognize an old Scottish tune in this music. Maybe I'll do that. I'll play you a jig. And first of all, I'll just play it the way it came from Scotland in a very straight way, and you'll be able to count to 4. So if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's a lot of versions of that tune in Métis country and indigenous country. So I'll play you one of the ones from that tradition. Again, we won't worry about trying to count it out, but you could try and count to 4. That's maybe the quickest way to get a sense of how this really doesn't work. 4. So. So that's fun. Thank you. You might notice a couple other things about this music. I mean, of course, it's very rhythmic and very driving, because it is for people to dance to. That I'm playing on 2 strings a good deal of the time. So I'm all those other strings that are tuned to A's and D's, right? I can use as drones. So it gets us back closer to, I guess, the sound of the bagpipes in some ways. And we thought it would be fun if I got you to try this foot rhythm, because it's actually pretty straightforward on its own. It's only when you try and play the fiddle to it that it starts to get tricky. In fact, there's an old legend in most of French Canada that you have to sell your soul to the devil in order to be able to play the fiddle and do the feet at the same time. Yeah, when I first ran into it, I had heard Quebecois players do it, so I kind of knew how it was done, but I had never really figured out how to play the fiddle to it. And I went back out to Manitoba. I grew up in Manitoba, but I'd been living here. I went back out and started hanging out with these guys who were doing this all the time. And I would go back to my little rented room in Gotham, and I would sit there and I'd be trying to, you know, get the foot thing happening, and then trying to play anything I could along with it, going right. Then just trying to work it up into tunes that I knew, and I would fall apart after about 4 beats, and then, you know, I'd try it again and I'd fall apart maybe after 6 or 7 beats, and I just kept at it until after a couple of weeks it all started to make sense. But it hugely helped that I was sitting in rooms every day with people who were doing it. So it kind of gets into you by osmosis. So you take 1 foot, I don't think everybody can see my feet. Take 1 foot. Is that true? Can you see my feet?
Yep, they're good.
Okay. Take 1 foot and you have a strong heel beat on the main beat, heel. And then you're just doing heel toe. Often you put your heel out forward and bring your toe back. So you're going heel, toe. You're pushing your foot forward on the heel and pulling it back on the toe. Heel, toe. And that's the most important part of it. That's what's keeping the steady time. Just to make it more interesting and get us into that shuffle rhythm. Then you add the other foot doing a toe after this toe. So it's going heel, toe, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel. But if you get mixed up, you just keep going back to the 1 foot, right? Keeping that rock steady time. Heel, toe, toe, heel, toe, toe, heel, 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 toe, toe, heel, toe, toe, heel. Now you can, when you first do this, it starts to hurt your thighs and your calves. You wonder how on earth they would keep this up, but somehow you eventually learn to just bypass your muscles entirely, and it just kind of falls into place. Yeah, it doesn't really matter which foot you use. Some people, you know, a lot of people will automatically choose their dominant side, but not everybody. I'm one of those people who's right-handed but left-footed, I guess. So I was going to say that you have the choice of not lifting your feet off the floor, which is how a lot of the indigenous players do it. They just rock their feet. So 1 foot is just rocking, and the other foot is, again, staying on the floor, going heel, toe, toe, heel. So it's quite gentle. They don't really care whether anybody can hear it, which seems crazy given how great it is when you can hear it. But traditionally, you know, they just do it. They grew up doing it as they heard the music, and it's the way they play, right? They can't, the music doesn't feel right to them unless their whole body is involved when they're doing this. Which is kind of cool. Or you can lift your feet up the way I showed you first, which is more what happens in Quebec. Pick it up, push it forwards. I find that a little easier to do. I find keeping your feet on the floor all the time starts to really hurt your thighs and things like that. So, you know, when I was there, some of the players were starting to realize that audiences really liked it. So they would make sure wear Hartsville shoes and have boards and stuff. But traditionally, no, you know, people would do it in the house. They would have slippers on or sneakers or moccasins, and you couldn't really hear it at all, but you could see it. And that was incredibly important. I should say the same thing with the stand-up step dancing that is part of this tradition, is that nobody really cared about hearing it. It was all about the look of it, right? You're standing up and you're doing all of these. This is a very basic one. I'm not a particularly good jigger, but jigging is what we call it out west. But again, nobody cared whether you could hear it. It wasn't about the sound. It was just about how it looked. So there'd be all these moves where you'd be kicking your foot a couple times in the air, right, which makes no sound anyway. And it just looked great. That was important. Anybody ever have any other thoughts or questions? What I'd like to do is get you to try doing it to a tune. We'll have to go a little faster. So if we get it going like about this, pardon?
Should we start slower?
We could start slower, I know, but it doesn't. Yeah, I know. We'll give it a shot. I have actually, I might not be able to do it with you if it's too slow, because it's actually hard to play it slow going. But we'll try it. So I'm going to play you a bit of the Red River Jig, which is a tune that's used for stand-up step dancing. The one tune that's in most Indigenous communities used for the stand-up version of step dancing. But here we go. So heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Drop the other toe in. Heel, toe, toe, heel, toe, toe, heel, toe, 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 heel. A little faster. Thank you. Yeah, it definitely gives you a bit of a workout. Nobody has figured out where that tune comes from or why it became such a big thing in indigenous culture, being the main tune. It's kind of considered, that's probably mine. Sorry. I'm just gonna turn it off. It's just an alarm. Okay, so. It's on. Okay. Yeah, I think it may have gone, that tune maybe, they go back to the Shetland Islands, but nobody's really been able to pin it down so far, but in any case, it became hugely popular because it was associated with step dancing. The low, it has clear high part and a low part. The high part, you generally do a basic, much more basic time step, it's kind of moving around the floor. And then every time the fiddle goes low, you show off one of your fancy steps. So there are competitions now all over indigenous country in the West and the North. In a competition, you would have a chance to do 3 fancy steps and be judged on, you know, how interesting they were, basically. But if it's a social situation, it's all about how many steps you know and how long you can go. So at a certain point in the evening, in a dance evening, it's Red River Jig time. Fiddler starts to play the tune. Everybody hits the floor. It's about not repeating steps. Ideally, you just keep going until really there's only one person left who still has new steps to show. And they're sort of the unofficial king or queen of the evening. But yes, question?
I guess it's like a dance off.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dance off. In some places, it's done in couples. So a couple would stand on the floor, but in a lot of places, it's just individual. You just get up and it's about how many steps, you know, and how long you can keep going. So it's a lot of fun. I thought I'd play you a bit of a jig where you can clearly hear that the A part is in 5-beat phrases. So you'll be able to just count a nice regular 5. The B part switches back and forth between 4 and 5-beat phrases. Okay, so get ready to count 5. I'll do it to get you started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's gonna change. That was a little more regular than some, but a regular kind of irregular thing in 5. 5-beat phrases are really common, and one of the indigenous players in Quebec once said to a friend of mine that he found that there was no room to breathe in the standard 4-beat per line kind of music. He said, can't breathe in that music. So for him, it was about giving a little extra space at the end of a phrase to just kind of take a breath and move on. That one is fairly clear. You can hear the phrases. A lot of the ones, like the one I played at first, it's pretty hard to decide where one phrase ends and the next one starts. But that one, right, you could imagine putting that one back into 4-beat phrases. But so instead of going, you're just adding an extra beat. Etc. So that's kind of a nice demonstration. at one point, I mean, it's total speculation on my part, but the Ojibwa numbering system, you know how our numbering system, we have numbers up to 10 and then we kind of start over. Then they're sort of compounds, 13, 14, 15, etc., 21. The Ojibwa number system is in 5. They have words up to 5 and then it starts compounding, right? Then it's like two twos, 3 twos and whatever. It goes up from 5. And I don't know, it just struck me that fives were especially important in this culture. You know, there's all kinds of reasons why humans might be attracted to the number 5, given that's how many digits we have on all of our limbs, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all, as I said, that's sort of in the realm of speculation. It was pretty interesting meeting all these guys when I first went out. Somebody had sent me a tape, that's how I knew it existed. It wasn't very public. There was nothing you could read about, nothing you could find out about. A friend of a friend just sent me this tape of the oldest player that I ended up meeting. The first tune I played was one from him, Grandy Fayon, from the Métis community in north of Dauphin. He wasn't living there anymore, though. He was living way off in Saskatchewan, and I wanted to spend time in the community he'd come from to try and figure out whether this was really a tradition or whether it was just one guy who had a strange style of playing that he'd worked out from living by himself in the bush. So I couldn't really, at first I couldn't really find out much. People told me I shouldn't go to Indigenous communities. People literally told me that I would be left dead in a ditch if I went and hung out in Indigenous communities. I mean, I wasn't ever one of those people to take that kind of thing very seriously. And I'm glad I didn't, because of course nothing could be further from the truth. Everybody was beautiful and charming and happy to have me and thrilled that I was interested in their music. It took a bit of time for me to convince them that I was actually interested in their tradition and not, you know, what they had learned off the radio last week, because country music was starting to make huge inroads in this community. So they were playing and listening to and learning to play on the fiddle a lot of straight American country music. And they assumed that that's what I liked, being, you know, a white person from the outside. And they would play me Orange Blossom Special or something like that, which is a real cliche country tune. And I'd say, oh, no, but I want to hear what you learned from your parents, what you learned from your father, what you learned from your grandfather. And they'd go, oh, because, you know, they'd had a lot of bad experiences playing that music, that irregular, unpredictable kind of music. They would go into contests locally and be disqualified essentially because the judges didn't understand the tunes and thought that they couldn't keep time. You know, it's pretty amazing to watch players who are doing this, but playing the fiddle and saying that they can't keep time, right? It just didn't add up to 4. That seemed to disturb a lot of the non-Indigenous population. So they had come to the conclusion that they needed to keep their style of music to themselves. So that was cool. But they once they were convinced that I really was interested in it, yeah, they were willing to record it and let me learn it, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the only way I finally made any contact with some of the players was by walking into the Native and Métis Friendship Center in Dauphin. Which is right on the main street, right? It's a pretty small town, you know. But at that time in the early 80s, people just, it was like they were in 2 different worlds. If a group of Indigenous people walked down the street, and a group of non-Indigenous people walked down the street, it was like they didn't even see each other, right? It was just like they had created parallel universes where they didn't have to acknowledge that the other one existed in a lot of ways. But I walked into the Native Métis Friendship Center, told them what I was doing, told them I was really interested in finding Indigenous fiddlers. And she said, oh yeah, well, talk to that girl over there, her uncle plays fiddle. And that was the beginning of it. You know, I called up her uncle, went and saw him. He was delighted that I had come to see him. He was already playing when I got there. Right, he was sitting on his porch playing because he knew I wanted to record him. I had a grant from the museum in Ottawa, and so that was the premise of all this, is that I was going to make these recordings and they were going to go to the archives in Ottawa. So it was a big deal for them. yeah, it was kind of cool. And then he just started to tell me about other players who were on the reserve. And I just carried on and visited them all. Never had any problems whatsoever. So there you go. I wonder if I should play something else. Maybe. Anybody have any particular questions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, communicating with them when you first went there, was that easy? Were they speak English?
Well, they speak English, but I'm glad you brought that up because, yeah, the first guy I went to see, Emil Spence, he spoke to me in a kind of broken English, and I never did hear him speak to the rest of his family. But the second guy I went to see, there were 4 or 5 people around, including their wives and cousins, and they were all speaking to each other in a non-English language, and I had no idea. I had no idea where I was or what this culture was. All of the books that I had looked at said, for example, that there were no Ojibwe people in that area. And I asked them what language they were speaking, in my naive kind of way. I said, oh, what language is this? And they said Soto, which is the French word for Ojibwe in Manitoba. But I had never heard the word before at all, Soto. It's like Sault Ste. Marie, Saulteaux. And I just, because I grew up in Winnipeg, which is really only 2 hours away from where I was, and I just thought, how could it be that I grew up 2 hours away from here and I didn't even know this language existed? I've never heard the name of it. I didn't know that these people existed, that there were Ojibwe people living in this area. And on my downtime, I would go to the library and read local history, and all the books said there were no Ojibwe in this area. So it's a bit of a disconnect, right? You just have to, well, you have to realize that you're doing something that needs to be done, I guess, to actually possibly let the world know that that the books up till now are completely wrong about what's actually going on. That Ojibwe people do live in this whole area, that that Ojibwe still is their first language. In certain of the Métis communities, they spoke French, but in most of the communities I was in, their first language was either Ojibwe or Cree, and they all know enough English that we could talk. I started to learn Ojibwe, but it's a wonderful and interesting and beautiful and complicated language. And there was starting to be some materials you could get to learn it. I didn't really get very far. I didn't have all that many chances to speak it, but you start to realize how much of a worldview is encompassed by a language, by the structure of a language. It's a completely verb-based language. There's, people don't use, there's no pronouns, for example. You don't have to say, I'm going to the store, because it's all in the goingness, right? Goingness is the center of that sentence. Somebody is going somewhere, and you can tell who it is by the endings on the verbs, which is true in some European languages too, like French and Italian, and Spanish to some extent. But it's interesting to realize that these very old indigenous languages are structured completely around action, around activity, around movement, around life, around the interaction of things in life. And it's all just implied by how the verbs go, right? So, all right, any other questions? I know we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, about 4 more minutes. I'm just checking if there's any questions from people at home. I'm not hearing any. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to you.
I'm gonna tune up one more string.
So what is your tuning now?
Will be, peg will move. I may not be able to do it. It's being particularly still this morning. I was going to try and tune up to AE. So I have only two different pitches.
Pliers or something. Okay.
Pardon?
Do you need pliers?
I do need pliers. Do you have some?
Wow.
I usually carry some in my case, but
I always have multiple. Oh, yeah, me too. I got a plier multiple. What,
Yes.
You said you tuned up one of the strings, so what was the tuning before?
I had the bottom string tuned up from G to A.
Ah.
So it's giving me an A, a D, and then another A and an E. And now I'm tuning the second bottom string up to E. So I have an A and E. I have to put something over this or I'm gonna get nice marks on my.
Sure.
Let's see. No, oh, no, totally. I just have to, get the cloth in place so I don't gouge my tuning peg.
These count?
No, I think that's good. I just have to turn it back. A little bit, yes. I've already, yeah, but I've already got mark. Have you done this before? It's not that big a deal, but thank you. So you can really hear the rain now. I have only two pitches. So my bottom strings are the same as my top strings, an octave lower. Okay, so this, you may or may not recognize this. It's actually quite an old and well-known marching tune from the British Isles that's again been altered and changed. I won't tell you what it is, just in case anyone does recognize it. It's maybe something you've never heard, but here we go. Anybody recognize it? So the first part is part of a marching tune or related to a marching tune called the British Grenadiers. And I'm not even sure I can sing you the original. Dum ba dum ba dum ba da dum ba da dum ba ba da da ya dum ba da dum ba dum ba da 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 ba da da. So that's the original. Is in there, and the second part, I actually can't think of what the second part, or if there is even the second part to the original song. But the second part sounds like London Bridge is falling down. Right down. So yeah, it could have been easily taken from both tunes, both original songs, and just kind of melded. I think the fiddle tune is a vast improvement on the original marching tune. It's very beautiful when you hear it played like that, I think. Anyway, so there we go. Bit of indigenous fiddling for you. Get the day going.
Any questions from home? Okay, so thank you, Anne, very much for sharing music with us today. And thank you. Oh, and if anybody wants fiddle lessons next year, and your woman, next week, Thursday tutorials, either online or in person. 9:30 to 10:15 listening test, 10:15 to 11 take home exam. That's
preparation for, not the actual things. Next Tuesday, there will be the listening test online. I'm thinking about offering an in-person version as well for people who would prefer that. And you will get your take-home exam hopefully tomorrow. It'll be due a week after you get it. Any questions about anything to finish up this course? Yes.
What's the number again?
It's the orchestral room upstairs. Sorry? 231? Thank you. 231. Okay, yes.
That's often,
No policy, just apply for it online.
okay, so where do I find?
I'll put the link, I will send you the link. I will send you the link, but if you just go on yorku.ca and put in assessed grade, they'll take you to the portal. Yes.
When we do the assessment, grade, you're gonna send me a note.
No, please don't. That. Yeah.
Prompts for us.
Yes, I know. It's just, it's too many and I can't handle my email. So yeah, as it is, I can't handle it. David.
I feel like being doubtful about my grade, is it possible for me to do the take-home exam and counting that for the SS grade too?
Anything you do, I have to mark and have to include. So you can do as much as you want. You can do 100% if you want. But if you do it or if you hand it in, I have to count it. Okay?
Like if I apply for the SS grade and then, for example, the take-home exam, that's like, I don't know, 80-something
Yep.
percent of the total course.
That's totally
Does
fine.
it get weighted as the 100%?
No, it'll get weighted as 85%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can take an assessed grade of 85%.
Yeah, I just boost up my.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can wait until it comes out tomorrow and look at it and say, oh yeah, I can handle that. I could write that. I'll do it. Or, oh God, I don't want to spend my time on this. I'm going to go with my 70. Okay? Got it. But if you do it, if you hand it in, I have to mark it. You can't take it back. Okay? Okay, good. Thank you very much. I'll see some of you Thursday. Are we going for coffee at 9 or you're up for coffee at 9? Okay, I will meet those of you who want coffee at Starbucks in Schulich at 9 o'clock on Thursday. If you can't come at 9, I can maybe go after also for you. But I'll, okay? Okay, bye-bye, bye-bye. Bye, everybody at home. I have to stop. Bye. Bye. How do I, boy.
So long, farewell, love leaders and goodbye.
I think we stopped, oh no, we didn't. Okay.